Hey Hope Covenant Church, this is Pastor John, and I'm coming to you with a very exciting announcement that's taken us a long time of prayer, dedication, and research. We are going to be opening the church for in-person services at a very limited capacity with a lot of mitigation protocols coming in just a couple of weeks on November 8th. I guess it's next week already. I wanted to give you some information about that, but before we do that, I want to tell you that if you're a person who views our online content primarily or exclusively during the pandemic, the only thing that will change for you is that our online content will continue to expand. And we're very excited to announce that we are going to be providing a Zoom aspect and element to the service. This is a tool that many of you are already accustomed with because of all of your business dealings or if you're an educator. But Zoom is something that we haven't taken full advantage of as a church. We've used it for small groups, but now we're going to be expanding it to create an interactive Sunday morning experience for those who are online only. And this is because we have realized that online attendance is not the same, and it will never be exactly the same as our in-person services. In fact, not even our in-person services will feel like our pre-pandemic in-person services. But we know that God is a God of relationship, that in fact this whole month we're going to be talking about the Trinity. And the Trinity is the way in which we understand God to exist in our universe as a triune God, a God that is constantly in a dance with God's self. And so because we are created in the image of God, we know that we are created in the image of a community. And that's why we're choosing to open our building and to include a Zoom element to our Sunday morning engagement for our worship services. So if you're online only, you don't have to worry. I know a lot of churches, as they've gone back in person, they've changed their online structure just because it's created an additional workload for them to continue to produce the online content at a high level. You don't have to worry about that. We are going to continue to prioritize that because we know the majority of our congregation is still going to interact with church in that way. And we know that so many of you have joined us from all around the world. So take this opportunity right now. I'm going to go into what that in-person service is going to look like now. But if you haven't liked and subscribed to all of our content, if you haven't visited our website, orlandhope.org yet, take time to do that. Take time to engage with that because we are producing new things and we have new ideas. In fact, this week we've been talking about our Christmas programming, and we have a lot of really exciting Christmas things coming up that will be online only. So that content's going to continue to expand. We're not going to go anywhere. In fact, we're going to add a Zoom element to that. We're going to continue to engage in that way. But for those who do choose to come back into the building for in-person services, I wanted to give you a little bit of a look into what that's going to be like. The first thing that we have to say is that the reason that we are doing this is not because of any political things or changes in the world or in COVID. Really, we're doing this primarily because we've realized that we need to care for people's as whole persons. So we are not changing our theology that God is a God who protects the vulnerable, who prioritizes the weak over the preferences of the mighty. We are not changing that theology. We know that that is the incarnation, that God chooses to be with us even when we are in our most vulnerable state. But we also know that, as I said before, God is relational. And so for so many people, the lack of relationship during this time has brought on a significant mental health component to this. And so what we are offering to you is that if you're a person who really cannot engage online, you do not have an ability to use your community context online, or if you're a person who is isolated at home, perhaps you live alone or just with one other person, and you don't have a family that you're able to connect with on a regular basis, this service is really going to be for you. It's going to be for you who know that your mental health is at a state where you need this in-person element, where you need to connect with God in this way. So we're not at all discounting the real and present threat that is the coronavirus pandemic or the COVID-19 pandemic. We are not discounting that even slightly, and that's why we've instituted these mitigation protocols that have been thoroughly vetted by our leadership team, that were crafted originally by myself in association with actually a group of doctors and immunologists that have been put together to work on other churches in the area, not just in this area, but actually the entire Chicagoland area. So we're not opening lightly. We are opening with the best possible protocols developed by experts, not just our own kind of whimsical ideas. So here are the protocols, and you can find all of these on our website at orlandhope.org/COVID. That's where you can go to the page, that's where you can register, and that's the first one, that all people who attend any in-person event, whether that's a Sunday morning service or any other event that we may host inside for the rest of this pandemic, needs to register. The registration is very important for two reasons. Number one, because we are going to have very strict capacity limits. Those capacity limits need to be met for the health and safety of others, because we are choosing, we know as a church we don't have to do this, but we are choosing to go with the experts, and whatever the state of Illinois decides for Zone 10 as far as capacity limits for in-person indoor gatherings, we are going to follow those voluntarily. That was a very big deal to the leadership team, and we are going to continue to do that. So number one, it's so that we can control our capacity, make sure that the people in the building are kept safe in that way. And number two, it's so that if in the event that we did have a positive COVID test come back from someone who did attend in person, we would be able to contact all the people that were at the relevant services 14 days on either side of that positive test result, to let them know, hey, we don't think that you've been exposed, because we really do believe in our policies and our protocols. We do believe in their safety. But if you ever do experience symptoms, that you do need to seek medical attention, and everyone should do that anyway, but just to give you that extra detail of transparency. Number two, we are going to be asking and requiring everyone to wear a mask for the entire time that they are in the building, with the brief exception of when you take communion on those Sundays when we have communion, which we have a protocol and policy guideline for how that's going to be prepared as well, that you can lower your mask for that purpose, but not for any other purpose. We know that there are people who just do not feel comfortable with masks, do not feel that that's a part of their daily routine that they can become accustomed to, and we would simply ask that you do not attend our services. If you do, you are required to wear a mask. The only exception, like I said, is during communion, and for the pastor, we will be covered by a shield of some kind as we preach the word, which obviously a mask might get in the way of that. So we're choosing to not wear masks while we're preaching, but again, with other mitigation protocols in place for that. The third thing is obviously distance. The sanctuary is going to be set up in such a way that you probably have never seen before, but it's going to be set up in a way that we are going to promote and encourage and require distances to be maintained between people who attend the service. We also have changed the flow of how we enter and exit the building slightly, not massively, to try and promote the kind of directional close contact not occurring as much as possible. Seats will be a minimum of 8 feet apart for each family unit. Obviously, you can still sit with your family who you live with, because they are in your proverbial germ bubble. Like I said before, we're going to continue to keep those limits, to keep an eye on the Zone 10 infection rates and the governor's and the IDPH's regulations and requirements for in-person gatherings for our specific zone and municipality. And then also, the last thing is that we are going to cancel our services during this pandemic probably frequently. And that's because as these guidelines come down, we are going to act accordingly as a leadership team. We know that this might be inconvenient for many of you who might get excited about attending a service and then that service gets canceled, and that might be disappointing. All we can say is that we, as part of the commitment to the way in which we're setting up the sanctuary, as part of the commitment to the way in which we're instituting these mitigation processes, we also want to make sure that we're being faithful and honest with the data that's reported and acting according to that. We are a church that takes those things very seriously, and it's the reason why we have not opened even as other churches, basically every other church in Orland Park has opened, because we want to take the science seriously, and also to understand that science is reflecting to us our ability and duty to protect those who God loves, and that's the vulnerable populations among us. So just to summarize, mask usage is going to be a requirement. Our capacity limits are going to be lower than perhaps you would like or you might expect. Our distancing is going to be kept, and as always, our online content is going to continue to grow and expand. For all of you who cannot attend, whether you're far away or perhaps you just don't feel comfortable attending, that's okay. So that's what I have for you this morning. I know that this is a lot of information to take in. Again, the best place that you can go is orlandhope.org/COVID, and that's going to provide you with all of the information. And also, just so you know, on that registration, we do have a behavioral covenant, which is just simply you agreeing to follow all of these guidelines. And we ask that you accept that, or we actually require that you accept that in order to be able to register. So all of these things are in place now. We encourage you to attend those services if that's according to your preference and comfort, but know that we are with you always. We pray for you, and we love you.